around 5 pesos per liter for diesel and kerosene and more than 1 peso per liter of gasoline. The Energy Department says domestic prices are affected by the higher demand for oil in the global market and the impending embargo on major oil exporter Russia. Public utility vehicle drivers again appeal to the government to bring down fuel prices and distribute aid.
Mabigat po kasi ito lang po ang inaasahan namin sa pang-araw-araw.
Pagalingan na lang po magtiyaga. Kailangan mo po dagdagan yung oras ng biyahe mo para may uwi ka. Sana lang po magkaroon po ng ayuda ulit para sa mga driver.
Sana po, yun tutukan nila ng mababaan nila, lalo na kay BBM. Yun ang pag-aaral natin.
President Bongbong Marcos is taking the same route as the Duterte administration. He is not keen on suspending the oil excise tax, while the second tranche of fuel subsidy has yet to reach PUV drivers. Amor Santos, CNN Philippines.
Consumers are facing higher prices and lower than white onions. Now it's salt and sweet potatoes. Carrie Cator checked on a wet market in Metro Manila.
At the time of tight supply, salt is the least item in the list.
Sabi kasi, medyo mahirap ngayon ang kuhanan ng asin. Kaya kailangan daw may stock na kami.
In one wet market in Quezon City, salt is selling for a higher price. From 12 pesos, Lulu Ramos now sells rock and iodized salt for 15 pesos per kilogram. Salt packets cost 48 pesos per kilo, higher than the suggested retail price of 23 to 29 pesos. Consumers are feeling the pinch of higher prices.
Ganun pa rin. Kasi alam mo naman yung asin, di ba, ano natin yan, kailangan natin sa pagluluto, sa lahat ng bagay.
Yung 500 piso mo, isang bigwasan lang, tapos na isang kainan lang. Hindi katulad noon.
While the Agriculture Department says the country may be low on salt supply, Trade Undersecretary Ruth Castelo says this is the first increase in salt prices in up to 6 years. But the increase cuts across some produce including sugar and sweet potatoes. Refined sugar now costs 96 pesos, 1 peso higher than the SRP. Washed sugar is sold for 76 pesos, up by 2 pesos from last week. As for sweet potatoes,
ngayon po sobrang hirap ng kamote dahil ang papangit na po ng mga balat. Gawa po ng ng kalamidad na sobra ang bagyo.
meat and dairy product prices are no exception. Wet markets sell chicken for 10 to 20 pesos more, while beef costs about 40 pesos higher than the 420 peso SRP. Even eggs are sold for 7 pesos and 50 centavos instead of 7 pesos. The price is right only until supplies last, and consumers can only hope that food in stock is enough to meet demand. Carrie Cator, CNN Philippines.
The Social Welfare Department is making sure students and parents will not see a repeat of the chaotic initial distribution of cash assistance. A.T. Nichols tells us the DSWD also has an appeal to beneficiaries a day before the rollout.
Joy Lopez is taking up criminology in a private college in Quezon City. But her family is barely making ends meet amid rising prices of basic commodities. She applied and received much-needed help from the Social Welfare Department's Cash Aid program for poor students.
Malaking tulong po ito para mabili ko po yung mga pangangailangan ko sa school, lalo na po matatapos na po ako mag-aral.
The DSWD says around 70,000 students have received aid since the first payout last Saturday. The agency will hold nationwide payout days every Saturday for the next month, targeting up to 400,000 beneficiaries. Huge crowds trooped to DSWD offices last Saturday after the payout was announced. This time, the DSWD is appealing to possible beneficiaries. Wait for a text confirmation before going to the payout centers. Those who walk in will not be served.
Kasi naman ipagtabuyan pa po tayo o kung ano man, magkainitan pa along the way, wag na lang po in the first place pumunta dahil ito po talaga yung nilaan namin para sa may online registration.
There are over 200 payout centers nationwide, a mix of DSWD and local government facilities. In the National Capital Region, beneficiaries will be directed to one of 3 payout centers in Taguig, Quezon City, and Manila. Students or their parents are reminded to bring documents that will prove their children are enrolled in school, such as a certificate of enrollment or school ID. And what about students who don't have access to gadgets or the internet, like those living in isolated communities? The DSWD says it is now working with LGUs to identify poor students who may receive assistance through off-site payouts.
Our field officers are tasked to prepare the implementation plan in cognizance of the peculiarities doon po sa ground.
AC Nichols, CNN Philippines.
President Marcos is promising small and medium enterprises that their revitalization and digitalization are among his administration's top priorities. Our senior correspondent, Lois Calderon, joins us live from Manila. Lois, what else can you tell us?
Pia, a long day for entrepreneurs, but filled with fresh hope and big promises. President Bongbong Marcos has personally come to meet them, about 500 of them, small and medium business owners and even micro enterprises here at the Manila Hotel. The occasion actually is one hosted by Go Negosyo, whose main job is mentoring struggling businesses. It's the first large-scale gathering for this sector since the pandemic, and we saw hundreds of MSMEs waiting to see Marcos himself. With security tight, it's hard to get an audience with the president, but this was his message to them, that their dreams are aligned with the administration's top priorities. The buzzwords are revitalization and digitalization post-COVID times. America's top diplomat to the Philippines, Mary Kay Carlson, was also present, telling entrepreneurs there are projects by the USAID that can help them go digital. Marcos went off script just to thank the American ambassador who was seated next to him on stage. Let's listen in.
Our Excellency, the Ambassador of the United States of America, I'm very happy to see you here because this, when we first spoke, this is, and where I talked about the partnerships that need to be forged for the future. This is precisely the kind of partnership that I meant. And I hope that we will promote this sort of partnership between our two countries on a bilateral and a multilateral basis. I am pleased that the focus of the MSME Summit, our post-pandemic recovery and the promotion of digitalization are aligned with the priorities of the administration, for we have a common view of our shared future, the future that we as Filipinos will share together. So I express my support.
Pia, this is one of the clear signs that the Philippines is continuously warming up its ties with Washington after a few wrinkles in the two nations' diplomatic ties during former President Duterte's term. Back to you.
Lois, a big crowd there. How did the MSMEs receive the president's message?
Pia, we asked one businessman who has a council of small businesses about how he feels about Marcos' speech, about whether they feel that the government is giving them enough support. Let's listen in.
If his presence today is, a start of that support, then yes, I would like to believe that. Because, the president would be very busy with so many things. And the fact that he spent his afternoon with everyone in this summit, right? That presence and that declaration on national and global media is something to hope on and count on.
Pia, one of the things that they're asking for is market access to grow from small scale to big business. You see, in this very tight credit market where borrowing for expansion of business is very expensive given high interest rates, entrepreneurs or enterprises want banks to come up with a different way or a separate way by which they are assessed if they are credit worthy. So in short, it's a different credit score that they're asking for. Pia, back to you.
Lois Calderon there reporting. More stories up ahead. Yet another controversy involving the Budget Department's procurement service. This time over its failure to withhold final income taxes to pandemic suppliers. And the rehabilitation of the Tullahan River drawing to a successful close with millions of tons of waste extracted. Keep it here on News 9. Welcome back to CNN Philippines. The Commission on Audit again flags the procurement service of the Budget Department, this time for failing to withhold final income taxes on foreign suppliers of COVID-19 items. COA said the government lost some 3 billion pesos in potential revenue because the PSDBM did not withhold the final income tax applicable to non-resident foreign corporations. The unit paid 11.80 billion pesos to foreign suppliers, which are required to pay a 25% tax. The former officer in charge of the PSDBM's Comptroller Division argued that transactions made with the suppliers were exempt from tax under the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act. But COA said this only applies to value-added tax, excise tax, and other fees. The PSDBM also facing the issue of alleged overpriced laptops for teachers at the Education Department. The Budget Secretary makes her case before lawmakers on why the PSDBM should not be abolished despite one controversy after another. This report by Paige Javier.
Budget Secretary Amina Pangandaman defends its procurement service after it becomes embroiled in another issue. Senators are calling for the abolition of PSDBM following Thursday's probe over the 2.4 billion peso laptop mess. Pangandaman defers to Congress if they really wish to do so.
During the time when I was with Secretary Jokno in 2017 to 2019, one of the benefits of the PSDBM is actually the savings that the government incurred during that time, which is worth 18 billion. So I think if we give a chance to PSDBM, and if we clean the process and the system of the procurement in PSDBM, maybe we can go back to its old glory.
She believes PSDBM can be fixed with programs in place. Senators Win Gatchalian and Coco Pimentel think otherwise. Gatchalian says it might be better to let government agencies do their own procurement.
I don't see the point of its existence.
So abolish it.
Just give it to the department, make them accountable, pera mo yan, ikaw bumili. If may mali, ikaw may accountability dyan.
Gatchalian says the laptop controversy shows there are loopholes in the PSDBM procurement process.
Looking at the setup in PSDBM, I clearly believe that there's something wrong. Probably, may sindikato operating inside PSDBM.
Senator Pimentel says it's time to pull the plug if changes in PSDBM can't be done.
Kaya paulit-ulit ang aking hamon kay new Executive Director ng PSDBM, si Attorney Santiago, na save your agency. Kasi kung wala tayong makitang pagbabago na talagang kahanga-hangang pagbabago, tama na sigurong goodbye PSDBM na.
The Senate Blue Ribbon Committee will resume its probe next week, while a House bill was filed calling for an investigation. The same Commission on Audit report on the laptops flagged the PSDBM's approval of contracts for personal protective equipment worth 1.38 billion pesos, despite the lack of necessary certification. Senators Pimentel and Risa Ontiveros want another probe into this matter.
If I may po, if you'll be giving us a chance to at least clean PSDBM, we will highly be happy with that.
Paige Javier, CNN Philippines.
Severe tropical storm Florida leaves tens of millions of pesos worth of damage to agriculture and infrastructure. Agriculture losses now at more than 19 million pesos, with rice and corn crops hit hard based on data from the Agriculture Department. More than 1,200 farmers affected. The DA distributed bags of seeds to the farmers. Disaster management officials say damage to infrastructure reached almost 34 million pesos. Florida damaged 24 roads and bridges in the Ilocos region, as well as 7 infrastructure in Cagayan Valley. Meanwhile, the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao under a state of calamity because of widespread flooding brought by bad weather. The state of calamity took effect on August 18 and will last until the end of October. The Tullahan River Cleanup Project has finally been completed after 2 years. San Miguel Corporation officially finished its 1 billion peso initiative to clean the river. The project began in 2020 together with the Environmental Department in support of the government's flood mitigation efforts and rehabilitation of Manila Bay. SMC President and CEO Ramon Ang said that with this project, they were able to extract 1.12 million tons of silt and solid waste from the river, which will deepen and widen its water-holding capacity to reduce severe flooding in the metro. This project benefits flood-prone cities of Navotas, Malabon, Valenzuela, and Caloocan. The company also marked the first year of its 2 billion peso cleanup initiative for the Pasig rivers. So far, they have removed over 510,000 metric tons of solid waste from the polluted river. The company hopes the initiative will entail constant efforts to keep trash from being dumped into the river. China announces new economic measures to deal with the impact of COVID-19 and the worst heat wave that hit the mainland. While Beijing has yet to fully reopen its borders to international travelers, locals are fueling demand for tourist destinations. Tristan Nadalo has the full story.
Beijing is making a comeback over 2 years since the COVID-19 pandemic. People are heading to work, dining out, or pausing in temples and enjoying a leisure time at the park. A far cry from 2020 when the capital was virtually a ghost town. But authorities are making sure people strictly observe COVID-19 protocols. Testing booths are accessible and free to the public.
So before going to any tourist spots or establishments here in Beijing, you have to make sure that you have the Green Health Code. So ito yung ginapakita sa mga establishment o sa bawat lugar na pupuntahan mo sa Beijing bilang proof na you tested negative for COVID-19 in the last 72 hours.
The public can now enjoy most tourist destinations in Beijing like Temple of Heaven at the city central. Around 12 million people visit the UNESCO World Heritage Site every year before the pandemic. A health code is needed to visit the temple. And for the nightcap, visitors can take the 45-minute Liangma River Cruise. colorful lights brighten up the 1.8-kilometer stretch of the river. The Liangma River International Waterfront is a new tourist attraction showcasing fashion, modernity, and diverse cultures at the heart of Beijing. While these are good signs out of the pandemic, full economic recovery remains a challenge for the world's second biggest economy. Beijing just announced a number of economic measures to battle the impact of the pandemic and its worst heat wave in 6 decades. China's biggest focus now remains on infrastructure, but Beijing also aims to boost its local tourism, investment, and consumption to further revive its economy. In Beijing, China, Tristan Nodalo, CNN Philippines.
Up ahead, even with Jordan Clarkson and Kai Soto, Gilas comes up short once again to Lebanon. And Ben releases their new single about moving on, while pop megastar Britney Spears is back with a new club banger in her collaboration with icon Elton John. You're watching CNN Philippines. Welcome back. A fresh setback for Gilas Pilipinas in the fourth window of the FIBA World Cup Asian qualifiers with a bitter loss to Lebanon. But as Pauline Versosa tells us, it was a close fight.
Yeah, for sure.
Gilas Pilipinas came out with great energy to open their campaign in the fourth window of the FIBA World Cup qualifiers. Even with Lebanon's home court advantage, the Filipinos kept their opponents scoreless in the first 2.5 minutes thanks to their great defense. In his much-awaited Gilas return, Philem NBA player Jordan Clarkson immediately made his presence felt, scoring 11 points in the first period.
That's a layup for him. Slow start for his team.
But Lebanon's offense slowly came back to life as they began to wax hot from downtown. Gilas, unable to sustain their strong start, committed multiple turnovers which suddenly erased their 10-point lead at the half. Asian MVP Wael Arakji then powered his team to a pivotal 68-63 lead by the third period. But Gilas remained within striking distance and even tied things in the final quarter. But in the game's dying seconds, Arakji drilled the dagger 3 that would virtually seal Lebanon's victory. Final score 85-81. The loss spoiled Clarkson's big night with the Utah Jazz star finishing with 27 points, 7 assists, and 6 rebounds.
I think we did a good job of competing. We had a great game plan coming in, but it's hard to win when you have 20-plus turnovers in a game like this, especially with the home crowd behind them. But for us, it's bright. We just getting this team together. We got some good young stars on the team. Just a tough one tonight. We just gotta take it on the head and get back to the drawing board.
Also leading the team's gallant stand was Dwight Ramos, who scored 18 points and 10 rebounds, while Japet Aguilar and Kai Soto chipped in 11 and 10 points respectively. Despite the loss, head coach Shot Reyes says he's very happy with how the team played and how they gave it their best shot.
We expected that it would be a big challenge, a big battle for us. But I'm very proud of the way our team played. I thought we battled and we battled hard. We competed. Unfortunately, we had too many turnovers. 21 turnovers really was the big difference in this ball game, and that's just a result of us not yet as familiar with each other as we'd like to be. So if we get some more time, some more practice time together, then we should be able to address that.
Gilas has now dropped to 2 wins and 3 losses in Group E. The team will look to bounce back when they return home to host Saudi Arabia at the Mall of Asia Arena on August 29. Pauline Verzosa, CNN Philippines.
And which team will zip ahead in the PBA Philippine Cup Finals? The San Miguel Beermen and TNT Tropang Giga now facing off at the Mall of Asia Arena in Pasay for Game 3. The series is tied at 1-1. San Miguel leading in the second quarter, 35-30. OPM band Ben & Ben has released their newest single today. The Filipino folk group comes up with, according to fans, one of the most personal and vulnerable songs they've written. The emotional piece speaks about closure and healing after the end of a romance. South Korean girl group Twice has dropped a new album also today entitled Between 1 and 2. The set of songs is led by the single Talk That Talk, featuring the group's fears, looks, and moves. This is a follow-up to their album Formula of Love, released back in November. Justin Bieber will perform in-game at gaming developer Free Fire's 5th anniversary celebration tomorrow. The global superstar will sing Beautiful Love on a virtual stage for the first time with his animated character Jay Beeves. Bieber's new single will officially hit the market on August 30th. Fans are going wild as Britney Spears makes her comeback as a free woman in her latest single, Hold Me Closer. The new song is a collaboration with music legend Elton John. It is a club banger remix of Elton's classic hit, Tiny Dancer. This is the superstar's first release since 2016 and her industry comeback after the termination of her conservatorship in November 2021. Newly released Netflix show The Sandman mixes elements of horror, dark fantasy, and mythology. But author Neil Gaiman told CNN Philippines in an exclusive what truly made the DC Comics series fit for a 2022 adaptation was its gender inclusivity. The show earned praises for introducing gender-fluid characters.
I think it always felt like we were a little ahead of our time, coming out in 1988. 1989. But the great thing about being ahead of your time is you don't really even get attacked. You just get kind of looked at in a baffled kind of way. I mean, I remember somewhere in there, the Concerned Mothers of America wrote us a very strong letter telling us that we had to repent. But it's the great thing about being ahead of your time is if you just wait long enough, the times will catch up with you. And I think right now, Sandman is utterly of its time.
Gaiman adds he has a soft spot for the Philippines and is thankful for the show's popularity in the country. The Sandman dropped on Netflix this month. And that is it for tonight. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
This program is brought to you by
RPN, Radio Philippines Network Incorporated, DXOO. Your source is in the pictures of Dial Saving Metro. RPN DXOO, a metro broadcast.